Hello there, dear friends.
Hello, hello, hello.
Greetings one, greetings all. Welcome to our castle.
My goodness, you have such a vampire-y voice. I'm scared. Not really.
It's not Halloween, and yet we are going to have a Halloween-themed, in some ways, show here. Hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Please do subscribe to both channels, EEARTS and Evolutionaryenergyarts. Yesterday we were talking about why was Anunnaki movie banned? Oh, why? Do you realize all the evidence we need is right out there? And it's slapping us in the face all day long. But unfortunately, the vast majority of the population just doesn't spend enough time looking here, looking there, adding this up with this, coming to their conclusions. No. They want to know who Jay-Z is dating. I don't know. Is that who they want to know? I couldn't even tell you who's in pop culture. For me, hey, I don't care. Really, I truly don't, because I find pop culture to be really, really disgusting in so many ways. And yet, I am a history buff, and history too can be disgusting in so many ways, but also very fascinating.
Mm-hmm. You know, they have a lot of stuff just keeping us sort of kind of distracted in many ways, but then they have a lot of stuff getting us enthralled with the truth in so many ways. But the thing is the truth looks a little bit too good to be true. It looks like they're putting it out there in front of us to be some kind of magical fairy tale, like this doesn't really happen, like this is only really in the movies, this is only on cartoons.
17th century vampire grave unearthed in Poland. Do you believe vampires are real? What is your thoughts on that subject? Is there a basis in fact for the vampire legends? And I think we're going to get some really, really intelligent comments. Please do share your thoughts. And if you've ever had any unusual experiences that you might attribute to something of a vampiric nature.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of information in here when it comes to the truth. I mean, truth is always in there somewhere.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So, vampire tales are normally associated with Transylvania. Well, in actuality, as somebody that's delved deep into the subject, they're all over. They're universal. And I could go off in tangents on this that will last for days. But let us just say they are not always associated with Transylvania. This mysterious Romanian locale was the mythical home of Count Dracula, and the actual home of the merciless 15th century Prince Vlad Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler, whose evil deeds inspired the Dracula legend. But as fascinating new discoveries demonstrate, medieval vampires, whether real or imagined, were not confined to Romanian borders, as the discovery and excavation of vampire graves proves. Oh yes, we could look to the Lamia of mythologies in the Mediterranean area. And again, this can be a label that encompasses many different subcategories. And there's vampires of different types too. Some energy vampires. You might have met some energy vampires. A lot of people are energy vampires.
And they don't even know.
No, they might have no clue. But have you ever met somebody that every time you're around them, you just come away drained? They might be up. They might be cherry, maybe. They might not be. But anytime you're near them, they just suck the living force, the life force, right out of you.
Mm-hmm. It happens quite often.
It certainly does. And then we have the more physical type of vampirism, in which, again, according to the legends, blood is actually utilized as the nourishment of the vampire. Well, that's where the chi flows. The chi flows with the blood. And it's interesting when you look at the meridians, they are the energetic pathways in the body which transfers the life force all throughout the body. They do tend to follow the major vascular networks. And, that's just another interesting note. Vampires have been feared and loathed through Central and Eastern Europe during those times. And among the true believers were residents of a small village in southeastern Poland known as Pien. This surprising fact has been revealed by archaeologists from Nicholas Copernicus University of Turin, Poland. During recent excavations near Pien, unearthed skeletal remains of a 17th century woman who was apparently judged and found guilty of being a vampire. But how were the archaeologists able to draw such an astonishing conclusion? By the characteristics found within the woman's burial, consistent with ancient vampire lore and other medieval vampire burials found in Polish territory. And there we see the skeleton. And as you can see, there's this metal. It's like a scythe. It's like a Grim Reaper's scythe right over the neck, so that if she did pop up, she would decapitate herself. Also interesting to note, she has a padlock attached to the big toe of her left foot. That's supposed to inhibit her from returning from the dead. And this is not the only grave where they found this. Just to cut to the chase a little bit with this, they found other graves similar. And there's been other traditions that they've used to do. Some places they would actually decapitate. And that skull and crossbones symbol, they would do just like that. They would basically tear the legs off, break the legs, and then put the skull with the legs, with the femurs. There's different ways that vampires were dealt with in different countries. But you know what? Again, this is a universal myth that we find all over.
Mm-hmm. And when you do a lot of things in the 3D, when it comes to energetically, it puts off a different type of energy, therefore creating kind of a wave or a ripple into the ether where certain things, strange things, might happen.
One of this woman's physical features may provide a clue as to why she was thought to be a vampire. She had protruding front teeth that stuck out far enough it would have been quite noticeable. Could have been interpreted as some by evidence of her vampiric tendencies. Fascinating, is it not? Yeah, and this gets into other villages where they found these skeletons, others buried with sickles tightly anchored across their throats, just like this one. Many different instances of this. So it's curious, to say the least. And of course, the vampire legends, you don't want the vampires rising from their graves to feast on the living. And of course, in voodoo, there is this really belief system that's thought that you could resurrect people from the dead as zombies to do your will. And there's always truth in all these myths.
That should be really taken seriously, because people really can take over other people's persona and then puppet them in such a way where they might do things that they didn't even, it's just, kind of mind-boggling. Somebody might do something and then turn around and say, well, why the heck did I do that? Makes no sense. Well, energies can get transferred into people, and they can do things that normally otherwise they wouldn't if that transfer had not taken place.
And here we see a link to a video, and that's showing the face of Vlad Tepes, who is known as Vlad the Impaler, and is thought to be the inspiration for the real Dracula. By the way, coincidentally, did you know that Prince Charles is a blood relation to the original person that, again, is thought to be the original Dracula? Not that he lived. Vlad Tepes didn't even really make it into old age, yet Prince Charles is of his genealogy. And it's fascinating, because when you get down to it, it truly is in the blood. It really is in the blood. And as we've said, these aristocratic bloodlines are all interconnected at some point. Every single president is related. They're all related. And of course, you can make the argument, you go far enough back, we're all related. Well, to a degree, but to the degree that the ruling families are related, it's much, much closer than you and I. Prince Charles is related to the Transylvanian Prince of Wallachia, Vlad III. This ancestor is also known as Vlad the Impaler or Dracula, and Dracula itself means son of the dragon or son of the devil. And his father was the original. And it's fascinating because we're going to go into a lot more depth on all this. If you go far enough back into the family tree of a European monarch, you're likely to find some interesting connections. Oh yes, it's all in the blood. Centuries ago, it wasn't unusual for royalty to marry someone who was essentially a cousin. No, actually, that was almost the mandate. You had to marry somebody interbreeding was the mandate. Somebody of royalty. And then we do, for those of you that have listened to David Icke, it's all about the blood and how easily these people can be overshadowed in many ways by certain beings.
And then they make fun of it. They poke fun at it. Like, this is just something in the movie. So if anyone really takes on this belief system as something serious, people are kind of created so they look at you funny, like, oh my gosh, you actually believe that? But this is something they do. They do it quite deliberately. Very important for them to keep a straight face while they're telling you the truth in such a way that otherwise would probably make you giggle in disbelief.
Absolutely. So Vlad Tepes III lived from 1431 through 1476. So yes, he died at only 45 years old. It's certainly not an immortal, although there are legends about him rising up again, as you would, tend to understand if you understood that he was, to his people, viewed as a war hero. So he was, quote-unquote, Christian. And this was a time of the Ottoman Empire, and this was also a time of war, constant war, in this area. And so this area was rugged and mountainous and not easy to conquer. And there were constant threats of invasion from the Ottoman Empire from the southeast, basically. And this was something he dealt with. And being a much smaller country and vastly outnumbered, he used psychological warfare to inflict terror into his opponents. And so when soldiers were captured, he would just commonly, again, Vlad the Impaler, he would impale them on stakes in various manners. And he would go out and he would have his meals right in the middle of the battlefield while these captured soldiers were dying slow deaths, being tortured by being impaled and slowly losing all the blood from the body. And so he became recognized as being very, very, bloodthirsty. but there are no legends that really that I ever encountered where it was thought that he was actually truly doing what perhaps one of his cousins did. And we're going to touch on that up next in a moment. But what's fascinating is that his father was named Vlad Tepes II, and it was him who had joined a secret group of knights called the Order of the Dragon. And so the emblem of the order was a dragon, and Vlad Tepes II wore it. When he joined the order, he became known as Vlad Dracula. That translates either to Vlad the Dragon or possibly Vlad the Devil. In Romanian, Drac means dragon. There is a definitive article in Romanian, ul, which is added to the end of some words to indicate that someone is the son of someone else. Interesting, is it not? Put all that together, you have Vlad III, son of Vlad the Dragon, or Vlad the Devil. This makes Vlad Tepes III Dracula. And that's, there where we get it. He was definitely, you could classify him as bloodthirsty. He was always trying to intimidate because, again, he was conducting what today we would look at as a type of psychological warfare, being vastly outnumbered by other forces. And so, he utilized anything he could. Now, to his people, he was a hero. To his people, he was, just everything. They loved him. Just as, some loved Hitler in Nazi Germany before everything really went south. So it's fascinating to see that Prince Charles is related to him, and actually, you could say he's in some ways his so many times removed great grandson. And is there any real doubt as to the blood ties here?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And so many of these people that they put on a podium and that they rise above and make them appear like they are better than the rest of us all just happen to have ties like this, and they're not too far unrelated.
A great-great-grandmother of Prince Charles' mother, Queen Elizabeth II, Hungarian Countess Claudia Redi, was also born and raised in Transylvania in the 19th century. And then we get into, that. There was the Hungarian-Romanian Empire, and I remember an aunt of mine, actually, she was a great-aunt or a grand-aunt. You could say it either way. And that side of the family does come from this area. Which was interesting, and they always refer to it as the Hungarian-Romanian Empire because at one time those two countries were an empire and were unified. But it's fascinating. Prince Charles does own a lot of property in this area to this day, but of course, the crown owns so much lands all over the place. This is Elizabeth Bathory. Now, some of you might know her, and she was called the Blood Countess. I don't know. If you look at this face, would you guess that she was a mass murderer that killed 600 peasants to bathe in their blood? And again, another blood relative of the crown. Feared Hungarian countess, infamous as the torturer and vicious serial murderer. And, again, it's been said that over 100, some say up to 600 young women were her main targets. She wanted the blood of virgins to bathe in, tortured and murder them between 1585 and 1609. And born into nobility, Bathory's family in Hungary was the ruler of Transylvania, while her uncle was the ruler of Poland. Now, what's fascinating is, as you can see, this killed over 600 girls with the help of her maids. She was subsequently arrested and remained confined to her chambers in the castle until her death. Okay, so she got a life sentence where she could live at home for the rest of life. Her maids who assisted her were convicted of witchcraft and executed. But the elite don't get killed like that. This is the perfect example of, rules don't apply to them, but they apply to everybody else.
And look at the behavior too. I mean, there's a whole bunch of interesting rumors flying around about, very, very young people being utilized for certain purposes. So these are the ones that are still in charge. It's not like this has gone away in any way, shape, or form. It's simply covered up a lot more than it may have used to be. And still, at some point, I believe these heinous acts will be completely uncovered as we move out of this Kali Yuga.
Yes, and this gets us to the Bathory family and their history. And again, the interconnectedness of this. One of the things that's fascinating is this history is also tied to the Order of the Dragon. So this family is tied to the Order of the Dragon. And of course, Vlad Tepes, we were just going over all that. And it also goes into Prince Charles in this modern day, part of the Order of the Dragon. It's right in front of us. They call things holy that are unholy. The Holy Roman Empire was a political entity in Western, Central, and Southern Europe developed during the early Middle Ages, continued until its dissolution only at 1806 during the Napoleonic Wars. So the Roman Empire has morphed in many different ways, but the reality is these families, they rule going back to the time of Rome, going back all the way to Sumeria, going back all the way to Atlantis. And, that's part of what we have to get through our heads and understand. Things haven't really changed since Atlantean times.
No, they just simply change form, and they do something a little bit different to cover up the truth.
Absolutely. I mean, they use the same symbols. Sure, they're not all completely united. And again, these people act just like ravenous wolves or sharks, piranha, however you want to interpret it, as you see this relief there of Bathory and Tepish, the Order of the Dragon, both of them tied to it, Order of the Dragon. And we were saying, again, the root word is D-R-A-C, Drac. Here you see him, Prince Charles, in all his regalia. We see, the symbolism's all over. All over. And in fact, here somebody says, is Prince Charles the Antichrist? The definitive answer is no. But you could look at the royal coat of arms and you could see, Revelation right there out in the open for you. Because the coat of arms does look like what's described in the book of Revelation. And I stood up upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, upon his horns 10 crowns, upon his heads names of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, feet were like the feet of a bear, mouth like the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So everything is right out there. They laugh at us because they give us these riddles to figure out. And they understand that most people will figure out a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. But they'll never put the whole thing together because they also give us the dogmas which lock us up into a certain box that we cannot see out of.
Mm-hmm. That's their favorite thing to do, is put out these belief systems where, we feel if we cross this line or cross that line, we're doing something bad in our very, very soul. The truth is, when it comes to spirituality and self-realization, that's just something that should be commonplace, that we come here to experience, and we should be able to do that without feeling fault in ourselves, without feeling guilty about following these little inklings of understanding that come around, but they are listed many, many times in certain places to, don't do this, don't go here, don't go there, you're gonna die in a lake of fire. They do that quite often.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, that he had the mark, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is the wisdom: let he who hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man, and his number is 666. Some will say the translation 616, and some will say it's not the number of a man, but a human number. And again, 6 in numerology could be one short of 7, and 7 thought as a divine number, 6 as sort of an imperfect number. We can see dragons everywhere. Here you see William, and you see another coat of arms. We see dragons. We see a lion. It's all right out there. Again, they're all intertied. They're all interbred. And, they keep it in the family. As you see, this is something that's been with us all the time. We see here depictions of these beings that are very, very reptilianoid. We see them, interestingly enough, identically in Mesoamerica and in Sumeria. Identical. It's because we are talking about the same beings. In Solomon, the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon, when you go into the Goetia, you go into Hermeticism and Kabbalicism, and you go down into the Western mystery tradition. And to me, it just all kind of, it's so obvious what it is. Here, Aleister Crowley thought he was talking to his holy guardian angel. He thought he was talking to his higher self. In reality, he was talking to greys that were controlled under the draconian system. And these invocations, why would anybody evoke? Again, invocations, taking something into you, into your body, into your physical vessel, merging with your own energies. Evocation is something that's, you're bringing a consciousness to the area that you are in, but it's not going in you. And in reality, you stay in the circle to protect you and draw it outside of the circle so it doesn't come in you, and you commune with these entities that truly are demonic. Why would you ever want to talk to anything of the dark? The dark's all around us. Go talk to a politician if you want to go talk to the darkness. Go talk to a tax collector. Go call the IRS if you want to talk to, something truly satanic. No, we want to work with the benevolent beings, and this takes discernment because, again, this is Satan's system. Why do you think, again, when the religious authorities of the day walk up to Yeshua and he's saying, "Get behind me, Satan"? Because the religious authorities of the day are serving the adversary of humanity. The mainstream belief system is the adversary of humanity. And yet, there is truth in there for those that really have discernment. Where does discernment come from? It comes from a spiritual awakening that does take time. It takes a lot of effort. It's nothing that can really be learned left-brained. It has to be experienced. So here you see this depiction of, drawing in this dark, looks like a royal Draco being into the circle with the pentagram drawn. And again, the pentagram symbolizes the four elements in spirit. Point down, it's matter over spirit. Point up, it's spirit descending to matter. But again, Solomon, look at Solomon, the name of Solomon, break it in half. Sol, Mun, Sun, Moon. There's so much more to the esoteric understanding that is hidden in the Bible. As we've said many, many times, why are there all these references to 12 tribes of Israel? The 12 apostles. And then why do we have 12 signs in the zodiac? And again, this is all part of the greater picture, the matrix that we find ourselves in. Why, the letters to the 7 churches, why the 7 lampstands. And again, that's a reference to the 7 main chakra centers in the body. And why, if Yeshua said, let thine eye be single, if the light of the eye is single, then you'll truly have understanding. Because it's not with the 2 eyes that we see, it's with the 3rd eye that we see. The pineal gland is the key to discernment. And it has to be awakened gently, and it takes time.
When we do awaken that pineal gland with the light of the eye, it enlightens the entire body, because then we're able to get information from every aspect of ourselves and not just that one aspect that we've been taught in the 3D world. And this information does take time to learn and understand. And having a spiritual practice is so very, very important. I don't want to get too far into that. I wanted to leave that for a whole another video in and of itself, because I think it's that important when we are dealing with energies, where we need to place ourselves, because it can become troublesome if this isn't something that you do on a highly regular basis.
Absolutely. So as we were saying, Aleister Crowley, who, is a very intelligent man who was led astray by lower energies, and Aleister dove into drugs. And so we don't want to go that route. We want to do things natural. This is his being that he contacted, which, is obviously, it's not a benevolent being. It's not of the light. And he was hoodwinked. And we've been able to channel him through Cindy. And, he's upset with what happened. He's not happy. And yet he hasn't come back into another physical form yet. But he's doing his studies and his work over in the astral.
Mm-hmm. Well, because there's karmic consequences that he was not aware of. He did allow his ego to get a hold of him because he wanted that power. He wanted that ability to, basically not have enough respect for the art and just simply want to be able to do some pretty seriously cool party tricks, and that's not okay. So yeah, he is doing what he does with karmic repercussions. He knows what he needs to do. And would he do it again if he knew? No, he wouldn't. Does it make him a bad person? Well, primal, he followed his primal instincts and he was wrong. And when we do go, we are the ones who judge ourselves, and all I can do is read his energy, and I can tell you, as a judge of himself, that's where he stands.
Absolutely. And now we're having some internet issues. But what I was going to bring up was John Dee. Because John Dee also, now he was the astrologer, of course, to the crown, just like Nostradamus. And he contacted what he thought were Enochian angels. But again, who was he really talking to? He was talking to the Draco. He was talking to the Greys. He was talking to all these beings that are lower vibrational frequency. And so he was hoodwinked as well. And there is a discernment that has to come again. When the third eye is awakened, then we could see clearly. And it's a knowing, as in like gnosis with a G. So again, these draconian energies, the order of the dragon, the order of the Draco, is really what we're talking about. As the Draco have conquered those that we would call the Anunnaki are a conquered race. They've been conquered and assimilated. And this is part of the power structure. These beings, they're the ones, from what we've gathered so far informationally, we could tie that AI consciousness directly to these beings.
Absolutely directly. We look at the Order of the Dragon, and the dragon is like plaster all over these entities. And it's an AI dragon. It's an entity that wants to be source itself. And they will go to so many lengths to try to be source, but really forever, all this AI dragon is going to be able to do is copy. When it comes to our souls, we are the original expression of source, and this AI dragon is pulling as much information from us as possible so that it too can have these, it wants emotions, and that's the strongest type of energy I can get from it. It wants to be able to act out of emotions the same way we do. But we are completely different entities than that. It can never have that, but that's not going to stop it from gathering information and trying. And look, and this site can't be reached. We're running into this left and right now. It's hilarious. So speaking of AI gathering information, they do these on game shows, and that's another video I wanted to go deep into about the game shows and the collection of information for certain entities that serve this AI dragon. Our devices, our internet searches, our very own thoughts are now collected because certain thoughts make a certain frequency, and those can now be recorded and they can be acted upon. So, I mean, how much are we going to give to this AI dragon is completely up to us.
Absolutely. So you see the depictions. Isn't it interesting too? The depictions of the Draco, very similar to what we might view in medieval woodcuts, even as Satan, the adversary. This is the legends of the vampires. This is the origin of many of the legends, as they truly do feast on the blood of humanity. And underworld movies did a good representation in many ways of these quote-unquote blue bloods and of their really cold-blooded nature, as you see on the right there. And the battles between the Lycans and the vampires, that's something else for later videos, and we have touched on it in previous videos. These aristocratic blue bloods that see themselves as being something so much more than humanity, and humanity just being their slaves and their meal. That's the way they look at us. We're nothing but a herd to them, nothing but slaves, nothing but a next meal. And so we could see that connection and the reality of the vampiric nature as you look at Bela Lugosi there doing his Dracula imitation. And I'm of that generation that remembers Bela. Does any of you guys remember the original Dracula movies? I'd be curious to see it. So we wanted to share this with you guys. Please do make sure you're subscribed again, and thank you guys for your support over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi. Couldn't do it without your help over there. Look forward to your comments. Give us ideas on what you want to go deeper into. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.